I'm here to talk about architecture and activism, which means that I'm here in two capacities. One, a sort of professional capacity as the director of an architecture practice, and the other one as a personal capacity as a concerned citizen and activist. So it's going to be some reflections from those two perspectives, so bear with me. So first of all, an architect is a person who designs buildings and in many cases also supervises their construction. Whereas an activist is a person who campaigns to bring about social or political change. Just thought we'd go over the event aim as was sort of dictated to me, which was with the RIBA joining the global declaration of an environment and climate emergency, we want to raise awareness, inform and encourage innovation among our London architecture community. So that's the purpose of today's festival, as well as enjoying some sunshine and beer. So I felt there was a bit of a place for both of these things, the architecture and the activism. And so over these next few slides, I'm going to be talking about what I personally have been doing as part of Studio Bark and in my own life. So two approaches, the architect's approach and the activist's approach to try and solve some of these problems we're talking about here. So first of all, an architect's approach. So what would an architect try and do to deal with climate change or climate breakdown? So about 5 years ago, we set up a sustainable practice and with the aim of making architecture within the context of potential climate change, as the kind of term was then. That practice was Studio Bark, and this is what we've been doing as a group for the past 5 years. So start with the kind of first building. This was actually designed by the founder of Studio Bark, Wilf Mennel, and this was a Code 6 house, which at the time was pretty special, really. It was one of only about 200 that were ever built, and this wasn't zero carbon in terms of policy. This was actual net zero carbon in terms of Code 6, and it was featured on an episode of Grand Designs, which got the practice going. One of the key things about the project, although there were lots, was about local sourcing. All of the timber was cut within about 100 meters of the building, this really informed a lot of the thinking around the building. How can we reduce carbon emissions both inside, but also kind of in a wider wider angle, if you like. And so, as well as moving on from all of this kind of work into local sourcing and inspired by the original building, we also started developing a specialism for paragraph 79 houses, which is basically exemplar case studies built in the countryside, which have to be kind of extraordinary pieces of architecture as defined by a panel of independent experts. So this is the Black Barn. This was our first completely off-grid house. We had to work quite hard to make that off-grid, but we just about did it. And then, this is a completely different approach. This is something that all of this work kind of financed, which was a development of a build system, a flat-back build system, which we called U-Build, which are our answer to sort of some of the problems around circular economy. So how to build buildings that you can assemble quickly but then take apart again. So it's somewhere between IKEA putting together a flat pack and then Lego, where you build them up like bricks. And so we've also been playing with lots of different things over the 5 years. This is one of the sort of most fun recent ones, which is augmented reality. So this is, imagine you've got all of these flat pack build panels, and I'm not there to tell you how to do it, but you could put on some goggles or a mobile phone and it shows you how to kind of construct things. So, this isn't sustainable per se, but you can see how this could be applied to kind of create some really interesting buildings in a kind of hands-on way. We also think sustainability is about inclusivity. So we've had 3-year-olds building boxes, we've had 70-year-olds building boxes, and everyone in between, really. We've applied this technology to temporary housing. So, how do we deal with overcrowded cities? Can we take up interesting spaces within existing buildings? We've applied it to self-built communities. So, how can we kind of build boxes on a community scale, and what kind of benefits do you get when you go up in scale? We've done some writing, so contributed to some books, some papers, tried to kind of influence the wider professional community. And finally, we've done some teaching. So This is kind of some more direct work with University of East London and University of Nottingham, trying to inspire the next generation of architects. So what was the consequences of this approach? Well, we've had over 100 case study projects, some of which are ongoing. We actually set up a construction company to build some of our own projects. We've had about 5 years worth of research, a business able to support 7 members of staff in a sustainable way, a forum to challenge the status quo, hence being able to speak here, a circular economy build system, and a connection with leading organisations. So we think we've done all right in 5 years. But during the same time, what's been happening on a kind of more global scale, and so you see here between 2014, 2018, CO2 emissions have actually been kind of going up, and not just going up, they've been going up exponentially. We've also had recent reports, IPCC, saying that we actually need to peak in 2020, which is next year, and it doesn't seem like we're going in the right direction. So some of the key issues here, we've been told for quite a long time. I mean, there's even an organisation called 350.org, which was saying that we needed to keep our CO2 emissions to that level. But we're actually at 415 now, so we've already gone beyond. It's not like we need to do something about a future problem. We've already got to the problem. So impacts are faster than predicted. There's going to be no permanent ice within 3 years in the Arctic. There's already extreme weather becoming the norm. Harvests have started to fail. Anyone seen the price of cauliflower recently? There were no courgettes last year. 20% of food production in Europe, North America was all down. So, we're not talking about polar bears anymore. We're approaching tipping points where there's going to be mass extinctions and societal collapse. And that's really quite scary, to be honest. But it's also highly relevant to everyone here, because if you don't have a society, then you don't need any architects. So, I think we all need to kind of really step up for this. So I think the conclusion here is, I think to be frank, we've done some great architecture, and we feel like we've really tried, but it hasn't really been enough on a kind of global scale. So if you try your best and it's still not enough, in a personal capacity, what can you do? So here's another approach that I've taken over this past few years. This is the activist approach. And this was not in a professional capacity, but a personal capacity, thinking, you know what, this is actually really quite serious. And, I still need to work, I still need to do things, but I can also join a group of people who want to make change happen a bit quicker. And so this is why I joined a mass participation movement called Extinction Rebellion, which some of you may have heard of, and went to the streets. So this is the other approach. So here's a typical Monday morning, Studio Box offices. We're in a rather nice, sort of idealised design charrette here. It's 9:59 in the morning. 10 o'clock, the fire alarm goes off. And you can tell it's in our office because the fire alarm has a spider plant in front of it. But don't worry, it's only a drill. And so after 10 seconds, it goes off, and 10:01, we're back to work again. But then one particular Monday morning, 15th of April at 10 a.m., same thing happens. Somehow we're in exactly the same position. Fire alarm goes off. But this time we got another message saying this time this is not a drill. This is actually an emergency. So the instruction was to join Extinction Rebellion to demand that the government acts on climate and ecological emergency, and to go to central London from 11 a.m. And disrupt some locations. So I did what any sensible citizen would do, and I left the building. So here we go. 11 o'clock, this is what we saw. This is a kind of a Nick eye view of Oxford Circus. So there's this kind of boat which has just appeared. There are people arriving with these flags which look a bit ominous. My heart's pumping because I don't really know what's going on and whether I'm already in trouble. And then this happens. Some of you might have seen this. This is the pink boat, the famous pink boat, with its debut. And then this happened. So I was sitting here. I never really quite witnessed anything like this, and it seemed sort of pretty special to me. They've, group of people occupying a space, and before long, we're kind of getting involved and handing out leaflets. I should mention there's a serious side here that, as well as giving out messages, that Extinction Rebellion kind of route is to block roads, cause disruption, and some members are actually willing to get arrested for that. And so inevitably, after being there for a while, this happened. This is actually not me, this is my colleague, Tom. Yeah, he made the Architect's Journal because he was willing to sit in the road long enough and get arrested. So what were the consequences of the architects, or the activist approach, sorry. So 1,200 people were arrested in 2 weeks, including Studio Bark's Tom Bennett. Bear in mind, over the whole suffragette movement, only 1,500 people were arrested, so this is quite a big thing. Within 1 week, UK Parliament declares a climate emergency. Within 1 week, a poll finds that 2/3 of Britons agree there's a climate emergency. And within 3 months, the RIBA has declared a climate emergency. So I've spent 5 years being a sustainable architect, and then 5 months being an activist. And you know, it seems like there's a kind of a clear route to what's made bigger change. Now, why do we think it's worked better, or why do I think it worked better? And it's because Extinction Rebellion is based on social science about what actually brings about change, and it's studied Gandhi, it's studied the suffragettes and civil rights movement, all of which managed to make rapid changes after years of inaction. And they do this through massive civil disturbance, non-violent protests, and self-sacrifice, like my colleague Tom's. So what can we do about this? What's kind of relevant in all of this? Well, I kind of got two kind of parting thoughts or approaches, again from the architect's view and the activist view. So as architects, there are a group of people who are all banding together to think that actually we can be doing more. One of them is Architects Declare, and that is about kind of individual practices who are all saying we need to step up, and then Architects Climate Action Network, or Architects Can, and that's actually about individual architects who also want to take action, and they're speaking later. So that's the architect's approach. An activist approach, if you go to YouTube and search for The Time to Act Now, which is by Roger Hallam, the guy who set up Extinction Rebellion, and put 7th of October in your diary to come down to central London. So yeah, that's my thoughts on what we could do next. So thank you.